The Royal Canadian Artillery Association is pleased to present our web event 24 January 2024 in discussion with Lieutenant-General Lise Bourgon. Welcome to the association.
Oui. Excellent. Donc, je vais prendre. J'ai l'intention, j'ai une slide que je crois que Steph va montrer pour que vous puissiez la voir. Mais j'ai vraiment l'intention de parler peut-être pour 15-20 minutes, un petit peu de la situation courante, des défis, ben, qu'est-ce qu'on fait là-dessus. Puis après ça, je vais vraiment ouvrir le plancher là, pour vos questions. So, I think mostly it's going to be about questions, and I'm more than happy. I saw a few coming online. And I'm cool with that. Really answering because as a general officer, I can take for hours and not say much. But I think I'd rather wait for your questions and really focus on what is very very dear to your heart and provide those questions. Donc, Steph, quand tu veux, tu peux partager la diapo, s'il vous plaît. Juste un one slide, là. C'est juste ça que j'ai avec vous ce soir.
Leon's got the control, ma'am. Leon, you got the
Okay.
one pager up? There it is. You're on, ma'am.
Awesome. OK. Donc, ça, c'est vraiment la situation courante. OK. The problem space, where we are, is really in the middle of that graph, as you can see, where the authorized strength is and where we currently are. And it's extremely worrisome. We're about 10,000 reg forces in the whole. About 15,000 with the reserve. And what is very, very worrisome is that we haven't been able to change the trajectory yet. We've been at this reconstitution for almost 2 years now. And this year, there is still a forecasted delta of about 200. I think it's 256 is the latest numbers that I saw, but 272 is actually pretty darn close. So that means that there's more people leaving the military than people that we are able to recruit. So we need to correct that. It's going to have an impact. It has an impact on operation, on the people that we deploy across the world. And if we don't reverse the situation, it will impact our ability to respond to government requests. So those are that's why in CMP, and Steph really talked about CMP as the lead for recruitment and retention. Some of you might not track also that I'm responsible, recruitment and the CFLRS, so the training school, the military college, the OCID Institute, Toronto from a professional development center, but also, the career managers, all the HR policies, succession planning, health services, transition center now, all of it. So honestly, when you look at the command from a chief military personnel and military personnel generation, because a lot of people forget, I'm more than the J1 of the CAF. I'm also the force generator from a health purpose and the purple trade and the recruiting. Only the Army is bigger than CMP and MPC. Okay, so the command is bigger than the Air Force and bigger than the Navy. So the Army, of course, is the number one command. So things that we've done are on the left side, and I'm just not going to go into a lot of details. But we have not been idle into trying to improve our processes. Of course, when we look at, and I know that most of you are retired, and please don't take this as a critique. Okay, but our recruiting process was archaic, is still archaic. It's still paper driven. Okay, nothing is digitalized. So 2 years ago, when we made the decision to prioritize recruiting, the CDS ordered that every recruiting center was going to be staffed as close to possible as 100%. Honestly, because pre-COVID, we were seeing the numbers in the recruiting center hovering at around 60%. Well, at the end of the day, if you only have 60% of your capacity, you're only going to do 60% of the recruiting. So we have not met that strategic intake plan for, I think, as long as I can remember, but I think it's like 15 years that we have not reached that SIP. But again, if you don't provide the right resource from a recruiting piece, then we're not going to achieve the right number. I would say that in the past too, potentially the people that were chosen to go to the recruiting center were potentially not the best people that should have been there. And again, when I look at recruiters, I am not looking at the highest IQ. That's not what I'm looking at all. I'm looking at someone who's keen and interested into the recruiting piece, that likes to talk to Canadians and selling the CAF. And the services have to allow those bright and keen individuals to leave the services so that they can go contribute to the recruitment, which has not been the case, honestly, for the last 10 years. Of course, we were on a downslope. You just put COVID in there, where for almost 3 years, we barely recruited anyone because our training establishments were almost closed. Okay. There was no connection with the Canadian population. CAF was still doing operation, but very isolated, and the contact with Canadians was very, very limited. So we didn't have that engagement with Canadians, into cégep, into the industry, into the community, because COVID was there. Quand on regarde la crise de leadership qu'on a eue dans les Forces armées canadiennes en 2020-2021, ça ne nous a pas aidés. OK? On s'entend que la publicité, les médias étaient très, très, très négatifs. So everything that Canadians were seeing about their CAF was not positive. So we lost quite a few feathers that we now have to regain from a point of view of connecting with Canadians and getting them to apply, which we're now slowly trying to resume. Donc, le processus de recrutement, comme j'ai dit, c'est ma première priorité. Comment qu'on accélère les applications. Vous avez tout entendu des histoires de guerre à propos des gens qui se montent la face au centre de recrutement puis qui ont des histoires de fous à attendre des mois sans personne les appeler. Mes 2 enfants sont passés à travers le processus pour aller au collège militaire, and myself, I can say that it was not pretty. Okay. As a parent, I had to push, and I was not impressed, honestly, with the recruiting experience of both my kids, which was like 5 and 4 years ago. So it's kind of interesting that I'm now responsible for recruiting, but let's not go there. Donc, on regarde avec, comme j'ai dit encore une fois, de s'assurer que le staffing level est à un niveau adéquat. On regarde pour s'assurer que c'est les bons gens qu'on envoie dans les centres de recrutement. Et puis, on fait beaucoup plus d'efforts sur l'entraînement. Et puis, on regarde aussi de simplifier le processus. 5 out of 6 recruiters right now are doing paper files. Okay. Their attention is on processing applicants. Their attention is not on actually outreaches and attraction activities because they're too busy processing files. Again, a very archaic system that we're trying to upgrade right now. We're in a contract mode, asking for a digital, un processus digitalisé pour simplifier le processus. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'on demande à l'armée, à l'Air Force puis à la marine de nous aider dans toutes ces activités de outreach and attraction. I mean, you have all the toys, okay? So it makes sense that the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy goes out there in the community and sells the CAF. And honestly, when you look at our CAF members, they are our number 1 recruiters, okay? I need them out there. I need them engaged in every activity, trying to recruit the next generation. Donc, c'est un peu la responsabilité des 3 services quand on regarde du côté de recrutement. Le côté processus, comme j'ai dit, 3 piliers, la sélection, les security clearance et puis le médical. Comment qu'on fait avec ces 3 piliers-là pour essayer d'ouvrir the aperture as much as possible so that we can get the applicants that we need to fill the strategic intake plan. We saw 4 years ago numbers of 8 applicants to 1 enrollee. So it took 8 people to show up either physically or online to the recruiting center, and we would get 1 new recruits. Now we're looking at 13 people. So we need 13 applicants to 1 person that we're able to swear in. So we started scratching on that. Why are those numbers so different than they used to be? And a few things are coming up. One is the market. Okay, the kids joining the market right now have a lot of opportunities. Okay, so the military is a good place, but they have other options. So we need to we really need to concretize on the military as the place to be, to have, we used to have a passive recruiting, people that continue with the process, made it through the end. Well, we need to completely question that, and it needs to be an aggressive, as much as possible, engaged process. We need to be the one calling them back and making sure they schedule their appointment and asking the right question. And we're starting to do that now. It's about being engaged and knowing that we have a huge role into leading someone to the entire process. So that's a huge change of mind that we're going through. We're also looking at what are the barriers right now. When we look at the process, about 80% of the people pull the plug on their application when they're faced to write the CFAT, the aptitude test. 80%. Okay, they just completely they don't call, they don't show up at their test. And we are thinking, again, the new generation being tested, having that fail pass, being questioned on their ability. We don't know, but it's certainly a barrier. So we've started a pilot project. And for a few specific, actually, a lot of the trades, we are waiving the CFAT. So unless it's a specific occupation like pilots and MPs and other few, they don't have to do the CFAT. They continue the process. We enroll them, or they're going to do the CFAT in Saint-Jean. And because we need that data to ensure that, success rate and failure and all that stuff, so that we can continue to compare. But they're going to do the CFAT in Saint-Jean and carry on. Is this a risk? Absolutely, it's a risk. We know that potentially people are going to fail in a higher proportion at CFLRS. We know that potentially people are going to fail their occupation training. Okay, but we don't have a choice. We're going to try it, gather the data on this, and make an informed decision as we go on. We've realized that with the current crisis in applicants and the conversion, that we have to take risk. We have to question everything that we're doing, and we are doing this as much as we can. So the CFAT is going to be the first level where we're going to see where it goes. On the medical piece, you've probably heard, and I'm sure there's going to be a question about that. We and Steph can talk to that a lot. The universality of service, where we have reviewed and we're about to go live on the 1st of April 25 on a new universality of service that has 23 criteria of task that a soldier must be able to do. And when I say a soldier, I'm talking about an aviator, a sailor, a general, and a private. Okay, 23 tasks. Most of them very, very simple. You need to be able to operate in a CBRN environment. You need to be able to do picket duty. You need to be able to set up a modular tent. 23 tasks that will be our new universality of service. Based on those tasks, we've really identified cognitive abilities and also physical abilities. And our members, it will be much easier to assess them against that universality of service. Based on that, we are looking at adapting the common entry medical standard, so the V2, O2, J2, and all of that, to reflect this new universality of service. So are we lowering the standards? Absolutely, yes, we are from a medical, but the universality of service, so whatever applies to CAF member will apply to new recruits the same way. Of course, occupation, like each occupation have different level of medical standard, and that remains, but the basic for everyone will be matched to the universality of service. So hopefully, again, putting a little bit more flexibility in our applicants, because the youth of today is not the youth that when we joined, or when I joined in 87, or some of you joined. So we need to adapt, okay? Because if not, we are never going to be able to sustain the force of 71.5 from a reg forces that we need to do. So working on the recruiting piece, extremely hard. But recruiting is only one piece of the equation. So when I looked at my priorities, I would say 49% is on the recruiting, but I have to look about 51% on retention. How do we keep the people that we have as long as possible? And when I do town hall across Canada, I said my objective for everyone is to serve until 35 years of service. I know that's not going to happen. But the second is, everyone should be given an opportunity to serve at least until 25 years of service, until their pensionable time. Okay. After pensionable time, we kind of look at that as kind of a healthy attrition. Okay. So we've developed that retention strategy, focusing on healthy attrition versus unhealthy attrition. And how do we really look at the unhealthy attrition? And by unhealthy, I'm really looking at people that leave the military before reaching operational or occupational functional point. Okay, so they quit before they get qualified. The specific racialized Canadian, okay, why are they leaving the military? Same thing on the gender piece, and looking at specific trades. So we're seeing right now specific trades that are having a very high rate of unhealthy attrition. So the more information that we can gather is great. So right now we have, we started exit interview, which is mandatory for everyone that is about to leave the military. We're really moving that around. When, for me, when someone comes and starts talking about potentially leaving the military, my first question, and this first question of every leader across the CAF should be, how can I change your mind? What can I do to keep you in the military? Because at the end of the day, retention is a leadership issue. And when we are asking those questions in the exit interview, why people leave, it's really split 50-50. On one side, people will say that I don't feel valued. I don't feel like I can contribute to this organization. I feel like I'm not listened to, and that I don't have control over my destiny. The other 50% are really talking about compensation and benefit, about impact to family, impact to spousal employment, and they want a little bit more stability. So a bit split. But again, when you ask people why they leave the military, if you ask 100 people, you're going to get like probably 65 different answers. So the more that we gather evidence, that we understand the problem space, then we can look at finding gaps, putting initiatives and program that we can put into place that will close the gap and keep our people as long as possible. So again, a big piece, and when I do town hall, I always say that a big piece about retention is the leadership, understanding your people, and the new our new PACE, so the performance appraisal system that just went live last year, is really good about that feedback loop, about having really worthy discussion with your troops, understand what they want, what they wish, and their desire. And we all know that there's a delta, between a want and a need, and how do we communicate to ensure that we don't set up expectation, people are not disappointed and leave the military because we created this situation. So it's about really good engagement, communication, and looking from Ottawa in a way to look at finding those gaps into what our members are reporting. The issue is, and some of you might not be tracking, but from a piece of compensation and benefit, it is not controlled from a CAF. It's not controlled from D&D. Okay. I have absolutely no authority. The CDS has no authority. The minister has no authority. Any of the compensation and benefit comes from Treasury Board. So every time that we have a good idea, and there's lots of good ideas, my office board is full of good ideas. Well, we need to find the evidence. We need to actually write the proposition. We need to fund this idea, and we need to go to Treasury Board, and they need to agree with us. And Treasury Board, as they have an office, and they on their board, they have a printout of what every different agencies in Canada, from RCMP, CBSA, the military, all the compensation and benefit, everything that they're getting, and the beauty about Treasury Board is their workers stay there for years. Okay, so it was very humbling when I was talking to an analyst who said, "Well, in 1997, CAF came to us and asked us to do this change, and now you want to do the opposite. So, do you guys actually know what you want to do?" And it's very interesting, okay, because they stay there a long time. They know the history of every department. So we have to be careful because our credibility is at play. So the work, the evidence, understanding, because great initiatives, but not always a good understanding of the second and the third order impact. And then when we go live, we realize those second and third order impact and are like, oopsie, but it's too late. Okay, so it's very, very challenging. You're tracking, all of you, the financial, the government is trying to be more balanced. So therefore has given very clear mandate to Treasury Board Secretariat to reduce expenses. So that goes with compensation and benefit also. And it's not like CAF can decide, okay, I want to use, because we're getting that question all the time. You are 10,000 people short. Therefore, there's a big bucket of money that you can use for compensation and benefit. Well, it doesn't work like that. We are not allowed to use free money to provide with compensation and benefit, because at some point, I'm hoping that the 10,000 people short, we will recruit and we will no longer have that delta. So what do we do at that point? So it's a very, very balanced and careful place when we're looking with Treasury Board and the retention piece. So we are tracking, we are doing our best, and some of the projects you see on the left, we had the 12% increase this summer. We finally updated the PLD, which I know that some of you have heard very, very negative feedback on that, but this was a success, okay? Our PLD had not been updated since 2009. It was really good for 5 bases, but it was really bad for the rest of Canada. And this new CAF HD is looking at every base, every location, and is providing the support to our members that need it most. And those are our junior NCM. So equal does not mean, again, we didn't go with equal. We went to equitable, okay? And who needed most. And that's how it was developed, okay? At the end of the day, 29,000 people are receiving CAF HD. And about 5,000 lost on the transition between PLD to CAF HD. The issue, again, is you never hear from people that are happy. You always hear from people that have lost a little bit of money, that are unsatisfied. And that's what what we saw. We are, I'm looking very, oh my God, I should have wear my glasses. They're very, very small. I'm getting there too. But we've modified the BMQ, so we reduced it from 10 weeks to 8 weeks, trying to get more recruits in. We've modified. We added compassionate leave. We have family leave. We have religious leave. We adjusted our PATA and MATA to reflect the Government of Canada. I hope that all of you have seen our general awareness campaign. This is for you. If you have not, this is really, really cool, in my opinion. It's a jewel that is working very well on the attraction piece. Of course, we need more visibility. I need more money to be everywhere, but that is a challenge, because the fund for media awareness is controlled by the center. So last year I had extra money that I wanted to throw into our awareness campaign, but I could not because we had reached the cap. Okay. So we had to go back to PCO and ask for more so that we could have more publicity on Facebook and Instagram and all of that. And of course, now with Facebook and Instagram and the other, that's starting to be also complicated. But anyway, so this is what we've done. What we're working on is on the right side, honestly, from that piece. I talked about the CFAT, the BTL. Again, how do we, like, I mean, if we recruit our people, that's great. But if they wait for years before they can get through training, we will lose them. Okay. The BTL, we know, is not a happy place. It's not a positive place. We need them to get engaged as soon as possible, get their training done, and get qualified. So working with the environment on how do we maximize their training to DP1, okay? And at the end of the day, that might be reducing training. The CAF is very risk averse, okay? We add training, we add, but we never reduce, we never remove training. So it's time to do a very honest revision of the training and maybe have different phase, you know, and carry on so that we can get to OFP as soon as possible and get them employed. I talk a little bit about the Common Enrollment Medical Standard. Universality of service is going to come, I'm sure, in a question. On the piece of retention, honestly, I own about 600 policy instruments, and again, not insulting anyone in this audience here, but they were written in the 80s and the 90s. They were written for men by men, okay? That was the reality. So don't take this in a negative, but I need to take those policy instruments and I have to review all of them from a gender-based analysis, okay? The box, that is the CAF, must be able to provide opportunities for everyone. Okay, everybody the same opportunity, and that has not been the case in the past. There has been systemic barriers and in the CAF, and we need to look at our policy to ensure that we remove those systemic barriers. So just the review of those 600 policy instruments probably going to be 10 to 15 years of work at best, but we need to start. And right now we're starting with the policies that have the biggest negative impact and crossing them off the list and going from there. We have to look at our allowances, okay, and ensure that we reward behaviors that we want to see. Okay, we want to incentivize mobility, readiness, engagement, and resilience. Okay, so your pay is always going to be your pay. We're not going to touch that, but how do we encourage, incentivize those behaviors? I go back to the land duty allowance, okay? It used to be that you got land duty when you went in the field, okay? And you got this amount of cash. Changes were made. Now everyone on a high readiness unit gets land duty allowance. However, it does not reward the people that are available when it's time to go in the field. So we're going to look at it. It's the same thing for sea duty. Okay, the ships are getting sea duty allowance. We're seeing sailors that land themselves the day before they sail and no impact because they continue to receive sea duty allowance. So how do we reward that readiness? Because at the end of the day, CAF is about readiness, is about that operational capability at, you know, dropping, you are able to deploy. Understanding, of course, that family support is that readiness. So, and that resilience, how do we provide that? Because it's a big piece, you know, the family is the strength behind the uniform. So we can't forget that. Great work on that is being done by Seamless Canada. And I'm sure I can talk about it during a question, but Seamless, again, looking at providing that support to for our family, for our transition. Housing is a huge issue. It's an issue across Canada for Canadians and for CAF member. But because we ask our people to move all the time, we need to pay specific attention and providing the support that they need. Again, we are special, but when it's time to make the case to Treasury Board, we're not that special. So how do we navigate this evidence space, but also that we provide the right support to our people? We're working on a health benefit package. We are really, I guess, a women's health initiative that is going to look at that diversity of our force. Because as a woman, I felt that I never got the medical support that I needed as a woman. Okay. So how do we bring back? We've brought back the OB-GYN that we got rid of in 1993, but now we have specialists that can provide expertise to our doctors when there is an issue that relates to, a women issue. Okay. We want to be 25% of the CAF. Well, we need to have those specialists to be able to take care of us. So same thing on the point of view of equipment. Okay. We are asking everyone to be as good as they can be, but how can we be as good as we can be if we have equipment that don't fit? Okay. For the longest time, the army rucksack was a piece of not very good. It didn't fit the body of a woman. Okay. We had boots that did not fit. We had underwear that were made for men. Okay. So I'm going to ask all of you to put some high heels and go run, and we will see how fast you are. Okay. So how do we ensure that the equipment that we provide to all of our troops actually fit them and allow them to perform? Because that is what inclusion is about. Everyone providing the same opportunity of success. Okay. So that's kind of what we're looking at from a health piece, but also a PSP, having specialists that will help women to go through their life from postpartum to menopause. The word menopause is being used in the CAF now. Okay. It is not taboo. It's something that we have to go through. It's not a disease. So those are the things that we're looking at. It takes money. It takes resource. It takes prioritization. Of course, there's other stuff as you're tracking with, Justice Arbor, fish, and all of the other recommendation, plus the deployments and everything else. So many, many priorities, juggling to try to always serve the number one priority, but it's hard to know which is the number one priority. I have 3 number one priority, and we all know that if everything is a number one priority, then there's no priority. Donc, c'est un peu ce que je voulais parler. Je pourrais en parler déjà trop longtemps, là, mais je vais maintenant arrêter, puis je vais prendre des questions dans la langue de votre choix, comme de raison. Ça me dérange absolument pas en anglais ou en français, comme vous avez vu, là. Puis on va y aller de l'avant avec ça. Leon, you can stop sharing if you want.
All right. Madame, il y a plusieurs questions dans le chat. Je vois que le colonel honoraire Murray Beer, qui est aussi le chair de notre board, a la main levée. Fait que je vais lui laisser la parole pour la première question. Murray, over to you.
General, speaking of second and third order effects, a past change to reserve pensions resulted in public sector workers and RCMP now being adversely affected in terms of reaching their end of service more quickly and losing the best 5 years. So I'm not sure if anyone in your staff is tracking it, but we have a number, at least in 33 Brigade, and so an Ottawa problem, of people who release from the reserves because they're worried about getting their best 5 years. We know this is an order in council fix. It's something I discussed with the chief at a previous honoraries conference, and we just haven't heard. And we're just wondering if somebody in your command is tracking and maybe on this. Over.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And honestly, I'll admit that we have not done a superb job at looking as a total team effort with the reg and the reservists. Okay, mea culpa. We need to do better. So I don't know if you had the chance to look at the reserve strategy. That is, I think it's in the minister's office for signature. Don't know when it's going to be released, but there's quite a very clear direction on CMP on how to try to do better from a lot of the policies from a reserve and a reg forces. So we're going to stand up a tiger team looking at, again, prioritization of the effect and the issues. One thing, and you're saying it's an OIC, it could be an OIC, but if we need to open one of the pension plan, okay, we're putting it at the back of the list, because right now, you remember what happened the last time we opened our pension plan? We went from 20 years to 25 years. We know that if we open the pension plan, we are not going to be happy with what the government of Canada is going to ask us to make changes. Our pension plan is the best pension plan in Canada. We have to be very, very careful. So I'm tracking. I just don't know if at some point I just don't know. It's a difficult one that we're going to have to be very deliberate, because if we do open it and, be careful what you wish for, because you might get it or you might not. But so this is one that is going to be very, very carefully done. It's on the list we're tracking. I will confirm an OIC could be easier than if it's not something else. But again, the list is very long on the inequality. And again, if it's reserve and the reg, for me, it's got to be equitable. It's not about being equal, because it's about being equitable. So that's the concept that we're looking at. But for sure, we're changing the leave. So we should be going forward with that leave that is going to be better. And we need to tackle all the policy that are not equitable.
I'll volunteer to be on your tiger team.
Hey, awesome.
Thank you.
Merci, madame. Regardez, le commandant de l'école a plusieurs questions. LD, you've put your questions like on full auto. I don't know if you can perhaps group them in under recruiting or retention. Maybe I'll let you ask your questions, the most important to you, perhaps, of those questions.
Well, I'm reading them very rapidly, and I can answer some of them very quick. So, recruiting bonus versus, again, recruiting bonus are under the control, the authority of Treasury Board. So right now, what we've done is, under my authority, I have the luxury of the PI. So the pay incentive, I'm allowed to provide a higher PI for people coming in from the some of those occupations that are red. So it's a recruiting bonus without being a recruiting bonus. Okay, because if I want to have true recruiting bonus, Treasury Board has to do it. They have to approve it every year, and it's complicated. When we look at double dipping, the Vice has issued new direction now that the annuitant, I hate that word double dipping, but the annuitant, as the policy has changed a lot. So now it's within control of each of the L1. Okay, so a lot more flexibility. The windows of leave, when they have to be out of service, this we're not going to touch, because if we screw up on this one, it's going to hurt big time. So that is not going to change. But there is more ability from an L1. You got to be careful if you make it too good, because we're just going to drain the reg forces and we are going to lose that flexibility. So it's that is a careful, again, lever to be using, because there's second and third order that we might not really like as we go forward. And coming back in the CAF, personnel to reduce their rank and stay in. I don't know, but there's that thing in the CAF that honestly, you're not supposed to go down in pay. So, but I'm not sure how many people it would affect, because at the end of the day, if you can't serve in uniform, there's always a job for you in the defense team. Okay, the defense team, again, this reconstitution is not going to be fixed by reg forces. It's not going to be fixed by reg forces and reserve forces. It's a full team approach that we need to look with contractors and public service and terms employee, et cetera, et cetera. So that is the solution. The VR, we are working on this. We're looking at expediting the process of transfer, compulsory training, untrained, voluntary, much better. We've hired a few people in CMP, and I will potentially, but what is missing, or what we're seeing, is application are not done right. When we ask for a question, the question is unanswered. The PLAR equivalency, so the equivalence is where we're losing the most time in the process. In the PLAR is controlled by the environment. Okay, the PLAR is controlled by the environment. So if they don't provide us with the information, the file is on hold. Okay. Each of the elements are providing now brokers, CT brokers, to facilitate between the environment and CMP. And that's helping, trying to go faster. But we need to ensure that there is someone as that broker, or again, the files disappear in La La Land. tracking them, having a site where people apply and we know who has applied and where they are in the process would be a really nice thing, but it's called digitalization and that also costs money. So, but it's on our list that we're working on from that expediting of the CT and the VR and all of those. So I'm going through, there was a lot of question in there. Oh, the conditional enrollment with the training and the medical. Well, the problem is, again, very, very difficult. First of all, if people are sitting somewhere, not gainfully employed, they get in trouble. And that's not good. If they get enrolled, you know, we have a thing about the CAF. If you swear in, you're a CAF member. So while you're in uniform, if we break you, we own you. Okay, so from a medical piece, very, very difficult to go forward. So we have to be careful. We're going to see from the release pieces, you know, PRBs, Progress Review Board, from a performance pieces where COs of every school has the authority to have a PRB, kick someone out of the military. It's not that long and they're going. Now we're going to have a PO 99 or something to that event where conduct is going to be a performance issue. So while you're doing training, if your performance of conduct is a failure, you're now going to go on a PRB from your the training authority, and you can be kicked out from a poor performance of conduct. So we are removing all of that from DIMCA. That's going forward. It hasn't happened yet. The policies and the procedures are being developed because, of course, we need to be fair, we need to be repeatable, and it has to be across. And the authority of release needs to be managed by the CDS. But we're looking at going live on a prototype in the May and period, so that we can go forward on this. And again, we'll remove some of the people that should have been removed faster, that are waiting potentially a little bit too long, but also allow a due process, because due process is, let's be honest, why DIMCA was created is because there was some abuse by the different services on how they got rid of people. So we centralized into DIMCA for that process, that due process, but now we're trying to delegate in a way that is acceptable and still ensures that due process, but that flexibility for the COs.